Have you ever dreamed of opening your own preschool? I know I have many times over the years, especially in the beginning of each school year. And today we're joined by Joy Anderson, and she's on a mission to bring the mothers home. But first, let me tell you a little bit about her. Joining me today is Joy Anderson, who's on a mission to bring the mothers home. After becoming a single mom, she decided to start a preschool, not a daycare, so she could stay home with her kids, create a consistent income, and make a difference in children's lives. As the founder and CEO of Preschool System, she's helped thousands of women create their own successful local and online preschools. So Joy, I want to tell you a little bit about how I first found you. And this might be a bit of a surprise to you. I'm hoping. Okay. Are you ready?
Awesome. Of course. I'm excited.
All right. So sometime around 2010, I'd been teaching for a long time and I started to think maybe I should start my own preschool, because my friends and I had been toying with that idea for years, but none of us could wrap our heads around how it would ever work. And we just kept coming up with more obstacles than we came up with, solutions to the problems. And so we just kind of stumbled around it. But I was starting to feel like maybe that's what I was called to do. And of course, I went to Mr. Google. And Joy came up right away. And so I started stalking you. And that was my first experience with Joy Anderson. And that's how thousands of teachers all over the world have found you since then, right?
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely been able to help, at least right now, over 5,000 women create successful preschools.
Wow, that is amazing. So let me ask you this then. What advice do you have for any of our listeners who might be thinking about taking this leap and starting their own preschool? I think that it's really common for when people have that idea that they just don't know where to start. So what advice do you have for us, Joy?
Oh, absolutely. I think what we have to do first is to say, who should start preschools, right? I think there's a bit of a mixed bag on, qualifications and experience and degrees and all these things that do go into this. But I break it down and I say, hey, all right, well, let's talk first about these three criteria. The first one is, are you loving to children? I mean, that's a given, right? Like we have to make sure that is the very first. The second one is, are you committed to learning and implementing the principles from the National Association for the Education of Young Children? That's NIAC in our world. Some people call it NACY. But, are you really going to learn and implement the developmentally appropriate practices? If so, and you're committed to doing that, then awesome. Let's continue. And then finally, are you prepared to create your own business and follow through on that regard? So if you are, then let's keep talking. Now, in the world of preschool, there's local preschool and there's online preschool. The interesting thing about online preschool is it doesn't require a degree or a certain level of experience. Anyone can start an online preschool from scratch. And then with local preschool, we kind of have two different qualifications. We have the ones who are going to start a local preschool with a certain number of students that their state is okay with. So for instance, in Idaho, you can start a local preschool with up to 6 students in a class ages 3 to 5 without getting licensed. Okay. And so that means that you don't need a certain degree or experience. You can just jump right in and start a preschool that way. And of course, when I say preschool, we're talking children ages 3 to 5, right? For a couple hours every day, then they go home. So we're definitely out of the world of daycare. But then we've got the bar a little bit higher. If you want to get licensed, if you want to teach more than 6 students in every class, then you're going to go through a licensing process. And that's where your state, and you actually do get a daycare license in that regard, because there's no such thing as a quote preschool license in America, at least. So we do follow the daycare requirements. We might get licensed as a daycare, but we're going to operate as a preschool. And in that regard, you'll just go through your state. It's actually pretty easy. I mean, think about how many daycares are in the world, right? It's pretty easy to get a license. And there might be a qualification, for a degree or experience, but most states don't have that. I mean, most states don't require that. But again, it goes back to those 3 principles. Are you loving to children? Are you committed to implementing and learning, the National Association for Education of Young Children, their developmentally appropriate practices? If so, and you're ready to start a business and start moving forward that way, then do you want to do online? Do you want to do local? And if you choose local, do you want to start with, let's just jump out the gate real quick? Or do I want to go through licensing so I can teach a few more students?
Yes, that's awesome. And you make it sound so easy, Joy. You really set people's minds at ease. And, for our listeners out there, or maybe even Joy, who's wondering, Vanessa, did you ever start your preschool? The answer would be no. And I think Joy is going to be very familiar with some of the reasons why. I bet you hear these every single day, Joy. I didn't start one because I felt there were too many obstacles in my way, too many insurmountable obstacles. So things like my retirement, right? I was with a public school district, so I had a retirement. I'm not going to say it was great, but I had something. Health insurance is another big one. And probably the biggest one in my mind was my HOA did not allow it. And so for those reasons, I hate to sound like Shark Tank, but for those reasons, I was out. I had in my mind, I had created plans of how to make the first floor of my house into a preschool. I looked into converting my garage. I looked into the whole air conditioning thing because we were in Texas at the time. I mean, I did a lot of legwork. That was kind of like my hobby in between traveling and speaking to teachers all over the United States and working on my website. That was kind of my hobby. Like in my back pocket, I had this idea that I needed to do this. And so what do you think about people like me who think they have these insurmountable obstacles that are in their way, that are preventing them from realizing their dream of starting a preschool?
Absolutely. Back when you found me, I'm so glad you told me because I thought I circled into your world. This is awesome. So back in 2010, the internet was different. We didn't have our Facebook group, it was kind of just like this idea out there and you try to figure it out. I didn't have a lot of my training that I do now. And so those who feel like, oh, we got these big, questions or, well, what about that? I'll tell you what, in the past, 12 years that I've been helping women start preschools, I've heard every single objection and I can answer every single one because I've been doing it for so long, right? So that's the thing. A lot of times is when you have these objections, you don't have the person to give you the truth. So we just fall back on, well, then this must be the reality, but we need to look at the truth. So speaking to retirement, the great thing is that when you have your preschool income, the truth is that you're actually gaining principles of now I can be in charge of my future. Now I can learn how to create income. And it shifts something in your brain where you don't only have to do a preschool for extra money. You can do tutoring, or you can do virtual learning assistants, or you can even teach kindergarten or K-12. The opportunities are so vast now to be able to create more income. This is maybe just one vehicle. And now the ceiling comes off. And where else can I create income? Which will help you for retirement and things like that. Another one you had mentioned was, insurance, right? And I think there's definitely some more flexible options now with insurance. A lot of times you can go through your, I think we call it the marketplace now. So you can, and I've been an entrepreneur for the past, 12 years. We do our own insurance through the marketplace. And it's actually not as scary as I think people, if it's foreign, it's a little bit scary, right? It's unknown. Lastly, with HOA, there are a lot of words that we can bring to an HOA to help them see the potential. And perhaps maybe we didn't know the words, or maybe they saw the whole thing and they just still said no. It's very rare for HOAs to say no, though, because we can share that, hey, look at a wonderful opportunity that we're going to bring into this community. It's actually a selling benefit to having homeowners have a preschool nearby where they can get quality premier private preschool education for their children. It's actually a selling benefit to the community. But if for some reason they still said no, then what we would want to do is we have two options. And I've seen this play out a few times. You could either do, of course, online preschool, because they can't say no to that. They don't know what's going on behind closed doors where nobody enters your home. Online preschool is a great option. Or secondly, I have seen a woman who she partnered up with her mother who lived in a different place that didn't have an HOA. And actually, after she started a preschool with her mother, the daughter was going to move. And so the mother kept her preschool going in the mother's home, and the daughter moved to a different different state and had another preschool. So that was able to do it. Or you could partner with a friend in a different area, or you could get a business space for a very low cost rent. Or lastly, you can even look into a church. There are many churches that have extra rooms that they are happy to get a couple $100 in their pocket.
That's actually what I thought of doing when I felt I was up against that obstacle. Somebody somewhere and on the interwebs back in 2010 said you should go. I was in Texas, so churches are everywhere. And they were like, I rent from a local church. I rent the space that I have my preschool in. And I was like, that's doable. Like, you can do that. Like,
Yep.
I was thinking about doing that, or from a local childcare center that maybe didn't have full enrollment, that would look for somebody who was a certified teacher that could provide this pre-kindergarten experience. So those were like in the back of my head and always sitting there and always like talking to me in the back of my head. Like, if this doesn't pan out, Vanessa, you can always do that because you love teaching and you're good at it. So anyway, I think that, in my, I think it's been the same amount of time that I've been running my business that you have. And I've learned more about the health insurance and the retirement and all that I get now. But at the time when I was first starting to think about it, my friends and I, we were just like, we can't, because we can't, we're tied to this system that we're in. So that you just make it sound so much easier. And you set our minds at ease. Another thing that I felt like was an obstacle, and you have since broken this down for me very well, was I didn't go to business school. Like, I was a classroom teacher. Like, that's what I went to school for. That's what I did for many years. I didn't know anything about business. Like, how was I going to get the parents to pay me? Like, do you just walk up and tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, can I have some money? Like, that to me was such a foreign idea. I didn't have answers to my basic questions. How do I pay an employee? How do I do that legally? Like, I didn't know. And that was so scary to me that I think that was really the piece that shut me down. I was thinking about where I could have it and thinking about all of that. But when it came down to that stuff, that's what really stopped me in my tracks. So what advice do you have for our listeners out there when it comes to the business side of running their own preschool?
Absolutely. Again, I just want to kind of lower the bar and say, it's okay if you didn't go to business school. It's okay if you don't have a business degree. It's okay if you didn't take a single business class in college, or if you've never had a business before. Like, that is okay. In fact, I didn't have a business degree. I didn't take any classes for it. I just fell right into it when I started my own preschool in 2008 and had to figure it out along the way. I mean, honestly, self-education is one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur, is you can learn anything from anywhere, right? The answers are all on the internet, or somebody has been through it before. But back then, nobody was teaching it. So I had to figure it out on my own. And when you do that, you have a lot of trial and error. You try a lot, and then you see what sticks, and then you move forward with those things. And the other thing is, I've been able to help so many thousands of women. I've seen all the different preschools and I've seen all the different questions. So I do have pretty much, like, I'd say 99.9% of every answer, just because I've seen so much, as you, just no different in your career, have seen so much as well. So the first thing is to find the person who's done it before, and then just do exactly what they say, because they're going to save time and money for you by you not having to do it on your own, make those costly and timely mistakes. And then having to repeat things. So the thing is, you don't have to have all that business knowledge. You just have to follow a proven system, A to Z kind of thing, to be able to do your preschool. And honestly, back to, like, I know the money question and signing up students and things, most of us have, no clue how to do the marketing. I think that's one of the biggest fears is, will anybody ever sign up for my preschool? Am I good enough? Right. And, what about free preschool? What about all these different things? And we have always, from the very beginning, when I started teaching this in 2009, I've always helped women create themselves as the premier private preschool. We're not trying to compete with free preschool, because people with free preschool would never go to us because they want free. We provide the best preschool experience, where they have family events and free field trips and graduations and just like a family to belong to, way more than just preschool. So when we start adding all these little elements into their businesses, they're on a bar above everybody else. And we give them all the business and marketing training and things like that. But with anything, right? You need to find the person who's done it before and has the system that's been successful for others as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that because, it seems like so many teachers, or people in general just think, I can't do this. Like this is so it's so impossible. I can't wrap my brain around it. I don't have we just feel like we're not worthy of doing this. Like, who am I to start my own preschool? Am I better than the school district I work for? No, so I really like that you said that. And I think that you hit on a really important point that I want to highlight for our listeners. And that is that you're not competing with free preschool education or free public pre-kindergarten, if you will. You're not competing with them. And they're not taking business from you. If I heard you right, let me know if I got it right, because you're offering something totally different that those folks who enrolled in the free preschool aren't looking for, or, for whatever reason. So would you agree with that? Did I get it right?
100%. And in fact, when we had the current president say, "Oh, free preschool for everyone. You're going to get your kiddo at least 1, if not 2 years of free preschool." Some of my preschool owners said, "Well, wait a second. Is that a concern for us?" I said, "Been doing this for so long. I have never once ever positioned us to compete with free preschool." The truth is yes, you will always have people who go to free preschool because they can't afford preschool, or because they just want the easy thing. It's right there. But you will always have this part of the market who wants the best. They want their child in the best preschool, the best experience. They're looking for that family, that community. And you're not going to find that in free preschool. And they don't want to send their child to free preschool. They want to pay for their child to go somewhere, and they want their child to be in that environment. So we have always, set ourselves at the top of the market when we create our preschools. And I think that's really important for everybody to know. And here's the truth. A lot of times people will have these blinders on. Maybe they're in the daycare market, or they, worked in daycares or things. And they say, "Oh, everybody needs daycare. Nobody needs preschool for a couple hours." How are those, parents who work 2 jobs, how are they ever going to just take their kid out of daycare and take him to a preschool class and take him back to that doesn't make it. I'm like, that's right. That you're not those are not your people. Those are people who do need a child care center, right? But that's not us. And so people need to take these blinders off and realize that it's okay that you've only seen maybe daycare in your world because maybe that's the world you live in. Or it's okay if you only see free preschool because that's the world you live in. But you have to understand there is a big segment of the world who does want a premier private preschool education. And that is who we serve. And there's plenty of them out there. In fact, I lived in a small town of only 20,000 people. And yet with our premier preschool, we had 150 students in our school every single year. So to say that this only works in, big cities or other places, it works everywhere.
Right. I really like that because it kind of goes to the abundance mindset. I like to think of it that way. So we tend to think that there's not enough of things, right? We never have enough supplies. We never have enough materials. We don't have enough of this. There's just not enough to go around. And when we flip that on its head and we have an abundance mindset, there are enough children to go around. There is enough space in the market. That's how the market works, right? Not everyone wants the same thing. I was buying my mother a birthday gift the other day, and when I was getting her, I got her some flowers and then this book. It was like a custom thing where you could put your family photos in, like a Shutterfly or whatever. And they had good, better, and best, right? Those are your 3 options. You could choose a very basic cover. You could choose a fancier cover or the really high-end cover that really bumps the price up. There's a price point for everybody, So I ended up getting her the really premium flowers, but the mid-level book, because that's what I felt was appropriate. And that's the same, I think, as the parents out there. There's different levels that they're looking for, right? Like you said. And I think that when we have an abundance mindset, it really frees us from those shackles of of feeling like there's not enough for everyone and that we're competing with each other.
Absolutely. And I think some people might say, okay, well, so if there's this preschool that's free, or if there's, this preschool that costs X amount, how in the world can I charge more than even the best preschool in town right now? And I'm like, oh, been there, done that. The way you do it is you stack so much value into your preschool that the other preschools don't give. The free field trips, the free family events. I mean, we were doing things every single month. We had safety expos, we had fall carnivals, just so many things. Our huge graduation, our Christmas party, they got pictures with Santa, everything that we could possibly add into this. We had class photos and portfolio books and just so much that we jam-packed into this that wasn't the norm with other preschools. So when you raise that value, your high price point absolutely seems actually at that point like, oh my goodness, you get all that for just that. That's the difference. A lot of people just say, well, man, I can't just stick a high price point on a preschool and call it good. That's right. You can't. We have to add in the value, add in the very, what's your niche? How are you going to be different than all the other preschools out there? And we help, we have some cool tools to help people do that too.
That's awesome. I love that because, even though I never did start my preschool, I still think about it a lot. In my spare time, or maybe it wakes me up in the middle of the night. And I was thinking that right now, one of the things you could do to really set yourself apart would be to offer like cleaning, like having your facility deep cleaned with like a fogger and all that, because that is something the public schools just can't do. I mean, I was thinking about all the bad parts of my job being in the public schools. It was dirty.
Yes.
So maybe your school could do, we have this special, we do this and we keep it clean and the toys are washed and all that stuff. That I just think that there's little things like that you can really do. Because I always thought if I ever had children, I don't have any, but I would send them to public school. But now I'm thinking, now I want to send them to the clean preschool.
Yes.
A really clean one.
And I think too, when we are our own preschool owners, we can take pride in our programs and create the program that we know needs to be created without any limits. A lot of times, if we're in a different program, we're teaching for somebody else. Our hands are tied. We're teaching their curriculum. We're teaching to their standards. We're teaching to our budgets are tight, like all these things. But all of a sudden, when you have a very healthy budget for your classroom, and every year you get new registration fees, you can up-level all of your supplies and furniture and materials, and you don't have those constraints, and you can teach the children to how they need to be taught, and have, go learn all of the things that you need to learn about how to teach preschool and things. That's what I like. I love that, because we do have so many teachers who feel their hands are tied, that when they say, wow, if you'll teach me the business side, how to teach preschool, like I know how to teach preschool or things like that. Awesome. Now all of a sudden they are just off to the races.
Yeah. Another obstacle that I had was my family, not my husband. My husband's always been supportive of everything I do. But I remember thinking about how my family reacted when I left the public schools, because that was always my dream, right? To be a teacher in the public school. I went to college for it, and that's what I did. And thinking about how they felt when I left to pursue a career with pre-K pages, they were not very supportive because I wasn't following the dream that I had, and they didn't see the value in that. So then I was thinking, well, gosh, if I stop this and start a preschool, they're really going to be upset with me. Like how do you, if indeed you're in that type of a situation where you're working in, a school or a public school, even with all the perks and benefits, and it's something you've always dreamed of, and now you want to step back. Like, how do you articulate that to the general public and your family as well, in positioning it in a way is it's a good thing. It's not a downgrade. That's what my family was thinking, this was a downgrade. Like I couldn't handle it. So I was going to be stepping down to it. I'm like, no, that's not exactly how it works.
To be fair, I'll be straight up honest. I don't know that there is a certain way to position this to make them see any other way, even with the best words and all these things. The truth is that they are limited. They have their own blinders, right? they're limited at the level of their experience and knowledge and things that they feel is okay or that they've experienced. And that's fine. The point is that they can only understand what they've personally gone through. So if they're not an entrepreneurial mindset, if they've never seen success from this path that you are moving forward, not just from maybe you, or themselves, but also from anyone in their sphere, if they truly haven't seen people like this be successful, they just don't have experience in it. They just don't have that knowledge to say, oh, yeah. And then I can say, well, you might be successful because I've seen so and so be successful. So they can correlate that. And it doesn't matter what words you say, they can't get beyond that. And that's okay. I think we have to just understand that's okay. The only reason why they are maybe negative toward it or things like that is they cannot attach your future with something that they have actually seen be successful. So we can just know in the back of our mind, that's where they're at. And this is the kicker though, I don't need their approval to move forward. And that is really hard for some people, if they're people they can't necessarily like detach themselves from. So what we actually suggest is because of that, because we cannot seek approval from people who can't, have our future dream like we do. And no matter of how many words we speak, till we're blue in the face, they won't get it. We actually talk to our owners and we want to insulate them with a community with people just like them. Because those voices are the ones they have to hear. They have to hear the successful preschool owners over and over. They have to make sure that those voices are louder than the other voices.
Yes, I love it. You just make everything, you thought of everything, really. First of all, you thought of everything, because like you said, you've heard it all. You've experienced it all. That is wonderful advice. And I should probably practice what I preach. And that is, you can't change what other people think or do. It's not in your control, And so my family is very supportive of me now in what I'm doing. And they would have probably done the same had I started a preschool. That's not to say I won't ever. I still have that. It's still very prominent.
I can't wait. I would love to see your preschool.
Well, I'm going to come to you for all the help if I ever do it.
Awesome.
Well, I don't have an HOA anymore either.
Hey, there you go.
One of the obstacles has been removed.
Love it.
So do you have any success stories that you can share with us, just in case somebody out there, they've never heard of you before? Some lady is on this podcast talking about how easy it is, but how can we believe that it's true? Like, have people, you've said to us, people have done it, but can you think of anyone that you've worked with over the years that stands out that went from teaching either in a public school setting or in, and I follow you, so I know a few of those folks, or even in a private school and gone and started their own preschool successfully? Do you have any success stories for us?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think of Anita Gerber. She is a beautiful woman who was a public school teacher, but she had kids at home and she struggled with leaving her kids, even though her dream was and her passion was to teach children. She looked at her kids and said, I can't even teach you. I'm leaving you to go teach these children. And so there was a bit of a disconnect there, an incongruency. So she said, I need to be with my kids. So she came out of the district and said, okay, how do I do this preschool thing? And I helped her start her preschool. She started it in her home at first. They actually even had a little basement area of their home that she converted into their preschool, but you don't need that. You could just do your living room and the kitchen table. That's truly the bare minimum. And after her preschool was growing, she had so many people interested in her preschool that she said, I can either have a big, long wait list or I can grow this. So she got a building also, and she moved everyone from her home into a building. And now she has multiple classes. And yes, she even successfully went through this through COVID. There was a little brief moment when she, moved everybody to an online preschool and then back into local. So she's done it all. And that was somebody who was in the district, right? But I also think of people who don't have experience teaching. I think of Rita Farina, who was not a teacher. And for 8 years, she had wanted to start a preschool and she'd been on my email list for 8 years. But this what if monster, she calls it, what if I can't get people to sign up? What if I'm not good enough? It would rear its, ugly head. And she would just feel that fear and she wouldn't be able to get through it until finally she had her brave moment where she said, I can't continue what I'm doing. And jumped right into her preschool. Within 2 months, she had almost 48 students enrolled in her little preschool. And she has grown so much now. She is making, I think, about $24,000 a month now. Something where she could never make that amount of money in her other, jobs before. And that's the beautiful thing about this is we can start so small. We can start with a little online preschool. We can start with a small home preschool. But the possibilities of growing this is limitless. We can grow into a building. We can grow into multiple locations. We can even franchise our preschools if we choose to. We can grow into different niches, K-12, virtual online learning assistants, tutoring. Some of our people even do things not with preschool. They do kindergarten, or they teach dance or theater or music or cooking. It's really, do you want to teach children? If so, and what is your passion? And we've already got the business side, so it doesn't matter whether you're doing preschool or, cooking classes. The business principles are the same, to get you started. And then it's, where do you want to take this?
Wow. That's really amazing. You've really created something really amazing here, Joy. And I know that your mission is to bring the mothers home, but I also think that it's really to bring the teachers home too, because even though I don't have kids, your mission really resonates with me, or has resonated with me for many years. By the way, I won an award for being on your list, your email list, for 11 years. I think I need it.
Yes, I love that.
I get all your emails. I always have. And I do read them. And that's when the little voice starts in the back of your head. You should start a preschool.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think you've really set a lot of our minds at ease for those of us who are indeed thinking about this. And it's not for everybody, but for those of you who are thinking about it, it is a possibility. Where can our listeners go, Joy, if they want to continue the conversation with you? And, if they're thinking about this a little more seriously, where should they go?
Oh, I appreciate that. So they can go get a free book. I put together all of my knowledge in this book called Start Your Preschool. Where they should go to get it is freepreschoolbook.com, and they'll be able to get a free copy of my book. Just cover, the $7.95 for shipping. But what I love about this is I've taken all those years and I said, what does somebody need to start? The A to Z, the every step, I put it all in there. So freepreschoolbook.com.
That's awesome. Our listeners love free.
Yes.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Joy Anderson. And thank you to all of our listeners. Until next time, I'm Vanessa Levin. This is Joy Anderson. Onward and upward.